Jinn and I Part 2. Now, standing in front of the same nightmare, I knew that my nightmare was far from over. The sensation of cold sweat forming on my forehead and the shaking of my hands returned as I sensed the Jinn's arrival. Part of me couldn't believe it. I had gone for years without facing his malevolent presence. But here he was again, looking as calm and composed as ever. "Hello, Malik. I see you haven't forgotten about me," he greeted me with a smile that concealed his wickedness. I tried to muster up an appearance of bravery, yet I knew the Jinn could see past my facade. The terror of his abilities and what he could do to me seized me. I lured my eyes away from his intimidating presence and tried to build whatever courage I had left. But then he approached me with a wicked grin, his hand slightly colored from blue flame's power. "It's time you did something for me now, only one last thing." His voice was low, menacing. For a moment, I hesitated. How could I owe anything to him? I had done everything that was asked of me. Panic set in. What did he mean by this? I needed to keep my wits about me to figure out what the Jinn wanted now. But for that, I would need to be alive. My mind raced, leaving me with 1,000 questions that I didn't have answers to. I swallowed hard, hoping that the situation would somehow resolve itself. Perhaps, it was a misunderstanding. But the Jinn had always been clear with what he wanted, and his methods were more direct than I would have liked. I couldn't take any chances. I needed to survive this interaction. The Jinn stepped closer to me, his demeanor almost playful now, but I knew better. There was nothing he enjoyed more than toying with me, and I had to tread cautiously. "What do you want from me?" I asked, hoping that keeping things civil would encourage him to reveal his motives. He tilted his head slightly, a cruel smile beginning to form on his face. "What do I want from you?" He repeated my question, his voice mockingly cheerful. "Just what you owe me, Malik." I took a deep breath and tried to stay calm. "I've already helped you in every way I can. What more do you want?" The Jinn's expression grew cold. "I want you to complete a task for me, Malik," he said slowly. "One that you'll either love or regret." I didn't like the sound of the Jinn's offer. The last time I had done something he had asked me to do, it had ended in horror. The memory still caused me to have nightmares that left me screaming in the night. But he had piqued my interest with his choice of words. Love or regret? That sounded like something that could be too good to be true. "That's not something I can tell you right now," the Jinn replied, and I could see the amusement in his eyes. I considered his proposal, knowing that I needed to be careful. "What's in it for me?" The Jinn smiled wickedly, sensing my interest. "Power, Malik," he whispered. "The power to control everything around you. To have everything you ever wanted." I hesitated, but the lure of power was too great for me to resist. "What do I have to do?" I finally asked. The Jinn leaned in and whispered into my ear. As I listened, I felt a thrill of fear ripple through me. What the Jinn was proposing was dangerous and sinister, and it would take everything within me to see it through. The first task was to acquire a rare book from the local library, one which contained information of great importance to the Jinn. I was skeptical of the Jinn's request as it seemed too easy for somebody with his immense powers. Nevertheless, I spent countless hours searching for the book in the dimly lit library. I scoured every corner and searched every aisle, but I found nothing. As the days went by, I felt more and more frustrated, but giving up was not an option. Finally, after weeks of searching, I stumbled upon an old, worn-out book in a dusty corner of the library. The condition of the book startled me, and I wondered if any information was even retrievable. But as I scanned through its pages, I realized that I had found the book that the Jinn had asked for. With its secrets hidden behind obscure language and complex symbols, I knew that this book held great value for the Jinn. Excited to have succeeded with the first task, I gave the book to the Jinn, and he disappeared as quickly as he had arrived. With each task completed, I could feel the darkness within me growing stronger, and my desire for power growing exponentially. The Jinn's offer of ultimate power had taken hold of me, and I was beginning to feel the effects of it. It wasn't long before the Jinn assigned me darker and more sinister tasks, and I was aware that the more I did for him, the more I was falling into an abyss. The power he was giving me was intoxicating, and I knew that my desire for it was becoming dangerous. I was becoming a slave to the Jinn, and the thirst for power made me irritable and impatient. Despite the risks, I continued to follow his orders, consuming the darkness entwined with power willingly without realizing its ultimate consequences. As the Jinn's tasks grew increasingly evil, I began to question the intentions behind them. Was the Jinn using me for his own dark schemes, manipulating me into doing his evil bidding? Did he care for my life at all? Despite my doubts, I continued to follow his orders. I had become addicted to the power that he had given to me. I yearned to have more of it, to feel the darkness seep deeper within me. The tasks that he had set me out to do were beyond what any normal human being could fulfill. There were moments when I doubted myself and the fact that I had even entered into this deal, but the thought of power kept me going. The day came when the Jinn asked me to perform a dark ritual in his honor, to summon a powerful demon. I tried to resist, to find a way out, but the curse of the Jinn was now stronger than ever, and it was impossible for me to escape his clutches now. I had dabbled in the realm of the supernatural before, but this was beyond anything I had ever encountered. The pieces of this puzzle were coming together in the most unexpected ways. The Jinn had too much power and knew too much about me. I feared that if I refused to summon the demon, he would find a way to make me suffer somehow. Terrified of the consequences of the Jinn's choice, I began to gather everything I needed to perform the ritual. The candles lit the dark room, and the feeling of terror took hold of me. There was no going back now. The ritual was beyond my imagination. Something was building up with every chant and every word. The air grew heavy with an unspeakable darkness, and cold crept up my spine. The entity grew more and more potent with every moment, and at one point, I feared that I had summoned something utterly unholy. My mind raced as the reality set in that I had no control over it. I wanted to escape, but there was nowhere to run to. I had allowed the Jinn to manipulate me into doing his bidding, and the consequences had become fatal. This was the Jinn's ultimate plan. His power and darkness, channeled into me, had unleashed something that had led to chaos and destruction. As the world fell apart, I tried to find shelter from the chaos. But then the Jinn appeared, with all his fury and power. He seemed delighted to witness the vastness of the destruction. The Jinn's anger was boiling over. He had no use for me anymore, and in his final act of vengeance, he reached out and touched me. The world went black, and I knew that there would be no escape now. In my last moments, as the darkness drew me closer to its embrace, I realized the depth of my naivety. I had gambled with what mattered most to me and didn't know how much I had lost until it was too late. The Jinn grinned wickedly as he stood before me. He seemed to enjoy the fear in my eyes, the awareness of what was to come. And then he reached out and touched me, and the world went black. I could feel the darkness tearing me apart, and the pain unparalleled to anything I had ever felt. I could no longer breathe, feel, or move. The once powerful man lay still, whose greatest mistake was greed and his search for more power. As the life left my body, I knew that I had paid the ultimate price for my thirst for power. I had been consumed by the darkness that the Jinn's powers had brought upon me. And in the end, the Jinn had taken my life as payment.